So here's what I'm about to cover. I'm going to talk a little bit about the process the staff has gone through to develop the rate proposal, the objectives of the proposed rate action, the proposed rate action and how the increase in revenues will be spent, and get into our customer outreach plan. Next slide, please. As many of you know, the Santa Clarita Valley used to have 3 retail water providers, and as a result of the merger, there is now a single provider. The agency wants to charge all of its retail customers the same rates. Currently, the Newhall division has the highest rates, the Valencia division has the lowest rates, and the Santa Clarita division has rates that are in between the high and the low. So we're in a process here of attempting to converge all the rates to a single rate. Getting to a single set of rates is the key objective of this rate case. Staff developed several scenarios of getting to a single rate, but without the input of the ratepayer advocate and the agency's legal team, we would not have been able to come up with this final recommendation that is included in your notice of public hearing. Next slide, please. By now, all of you should have received in the mail a notice of public hearing for the proposed rate case that's going to happen on June 15th. On June 15th, you will be provided the opportunity to provide public comment prior to a decision by the board. The board of directors will make a decision on the rates at this meeting. Next slide, please. So the proposed rate action is for a 5-year period. In year 1, the rate action is proposed to shift all customers to the same set of rates. While this will have an impact on your bill, overall, the first year of the plan does not include a component of raising revenues for the agency. Years 2 through 5 do have revenue increase proposals. The actual amount that your bill will increase in those years will be dependent on how much water you use. Much of the proposed revenue increase will go towards PFAS treatment. PFAS is a chemical that has been found in our local water supply. Water agencies do not put these chemicals into the water, but over time, very small amounts enter the water supplies. In a few moments, I will show you how the new revenue is planned on being spent. And in addition, as I mentioned earlier, to unify the rates so that all customers are paying the same price for water service in the valley is a key objective. One of the pieces that we'll be talking about shortly is the establishment of a fixed charge for legacy debt so that pre-merger capital work continues to only be paid for by customers in the service area that it was incurred for. Okay, let's go to the next slide here. So here's a picture of the general process that we went through to determine what to charge. So the process of, it begins with an assessment of forecasted revenues with existing rates and planned upcoming expenses. The next step involves allocating the revenue requirements equitably among customers. And then finally, rates are designed and developed to collect that required amount of revenue with much consideration to customer impact. Next slide, please. Here's a slide showing what we do with your money. The rate revenues that come in are spent for items, 38% for operation and maintenance expenses. These include labor and materials for main repairs, service connections, equipment rentals. 20% roughly goes for administration costs, which also includes labor costs, legal fees, professional services, liability, property, flood and earthquake insurance, technology, uniforms, and safety programs. Next on that list is debt service. That is the principal and interest repayment on bonds that were issued to fund capital project work. The next item, 14%, is pay-go. That is pay-as-you-go capital, and that is an effort to pay using current rate revenues for some of the capital investment in infrastructure that we need to without issuing debt. And then we have our water resources, which include water treatment, comes in at about 7%. And then finally, the PFAS operations and maintenance. That is a new category, and it's a large and growing category. And that's going to be a central theme that we talk about here in this next slide. So let's go to the next slide, and I'll show you where the proposed revenue is planned on being spent. Nearly 80% of the additional revenue in this proposed rate plan will go towards PFAS operating and maintenance expense. Some of you folks on this call may not be too familiar with PFAS. It's a contaminant in the local water supply that was not identified until recently. As I mentioned a moment ago, PFAS is a chemical that has been found in the local water supply, but water agencies don't put that into the water. Over time, very small amounts enter the water supplies. If it weren't for PFAS, we would be looking at a much different rate proposal and proposed rate plan that would be needing much less additional revenue and would very likely be for a much shorter term. The remaining of the about $26 million that we're seeking, I'm just showing you that 80%, about 20 million is going for the PFAS. About a little over $2 million is going for additional water banking, which is additional resources and storage of water. And then the balance, about $3.5 million over the next 5 years for additional operating and maintenance expenses, which includes planned growth of about 3 full-time equivalent staff members are in there, and additional just expected cost increases to chemicals and supplies for water treatment and operations. Let's go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to spend a few minutes going over the key structural changes to the proposed in the proposed rate plan. Currently, there are 2 charges on your bills: a fixed charge and a water use charge. In the current fixed charge, there's a service component for the cost of providing service, but there's also debt service. And what we're going to do under this, we're proposing to do under this new rate plan is to split that fixed charge into 2 pieces. All these elements are currently in the fixed charge. We're just going to break it into 2 separate fixed charges. One is for the service charge, and the other is for the legacy debt. The water use charge will remain the same in terms that it's based on how much water you use. Let's go to the next slide, and I'll get into this a little bit further. Okay, so the fixed charges are based on meter connection size. And I am taking a leap of faith here that most of the people on the call here are residential customers, and 3/4-inch meters are the standard and most common size of meters for single-family residential service. As I mentioned a moment ago, there'll be 2 fixed charges on your bill: a service charge, which covers the costs of meters and service, transmission and distribution of the water, and also helps fund for some of the pay-go capital projects. In addition, the other charge is the legacy debt charge, and that is the amount of that charge is dependent on the amount of debt that the former retail agency that was serving you had incurred. We are keeping that debt separate, and will continue to ensure that only customer service areas that were benefiting from those investments will be paying for that debt. As I mentioned a moment ago, all of these components on these 2 fixed charges are currently combined in a single charge, but we're just splitting them out so that we can differentiate on the bill based on the division and the legacy debt amount. Let's go to the next slide, please. The water usage charge. This is, as I mentioned, it's based on the amount of water that you use in a month. And the basic billing unit is a cubic 100 feet, which is equal to 748 gallons. This covers the cost of the water treatment, the electricity to pump it into and through the system, as well as treatment. And just one thing I'd like to point out here on the far left of this slide, there is a picture of a man standing. He's actually, it's hard to see, he's holding a little 16-ounce bottle of plastic water. You may have purchased some of those in the stores and you know what those cost. But behind him is a tank, and that tank is holding 748 gallons of water, which is one billing unit, which we charge about $2 for. So just to put it in the size and perspective, that's a lot of water that you're getting for the service charge that we're charging per unit. Let's go to the next slide. So here is the variable charge, the water charge for potable water, which is drinking water that comes out of your tap at home. And the way to read this is there are 5 separate numbers here. Each of these are what the charge per unit of water on a monthly basis will be for the given time period. So beginning on July 1st of this year, the water rate charge, the variable charge would be $2.09 per unit used. In the second year of this plan, it would be $2.22 per unit. In the third year, it would be $2.37. In the fourth year, that price would go up to $2.52. And in the fifth year, it would go up to $2.68 per unit. So what we're showing you here is a proposed increase to the variable charge that everyone will be paying throughout the service territory. In the first year, it would be $2.09, and it would go up to $2.68 by the end of the fifth year of this proposed rate plan. Next slide, please. This slide has an awful lot of numbers, but this is the proposed fixed service charge. And what you're looking at, I don't know if you can see my mouse going across the screen, but I am pointing at the first column for the meter size 3/4 inch, because that is the most common size residential meter connection size that we have in the Santa Clarita Valley. And the proposed rates would be per month a fixed service charge of $18.38 per month. In the second year, it would go to $19.58. In the third year, it would go to $20.85. In the fourth year, it would go to $22.21. And in the fifth year, it would reach $23.65 per month. So over this 5-year period, beginning this July, the proposal is to charge $18.38 per month for the fixed service charge, and that would increase to $23.65 per month at the end of the rate plan. Next slide, please. This is showing the rate table for the private fire service charges. If you're not sure whether or not you have one of these, you don't have it. You would know. There are only 1,400 of these throughout the entire service area in the Santa Clarita Valley. And the key is, there's a picture on the bottom right-hand corner of this slide. It is a red pipe. And what you may see these as you're traveling around town is if you are driving along by the mall or one of the big box stores, you'll see red pipes going into the building, and that is a private fire line. And these rates here are for those charges. And like I said, there's only 1,400 of these about in the entire service area. So it's doubtful that anybody on this call has one of these, but here are the proposed rates for those. Let's go to the next slide. This is the recycled water charge. Recycled water is available to the city, to its golf course, and some of the medians. There's plans for some of the homeowner associations that are near some of the existing lines and planned lines to get this service, but residential customers do not have recycled water, and they will not be charged these fees. This is per unit consumed, and that rate will be at $1.67 in the first year, going up to $2.14 per unit in the fifth year. Next slide, please. So this is my last slide. I'll spend a couple of minutes on it because it's pretty complex. This is showing the average customer impact on your monthly bill over this proposed rate plan. So let me begin by saying on the far left is the division. The first one, NWD, that's the Newhall service area. SCWD is the Santa Clarita division, and VWD is the Valencia division. The next column over is showing the three most common meter connection sizes: 3/4 inch, 1 inch, and 2 inch. If you're residential, you're very likely going to be at the 3/4 inch. So we'll focus on that one here this morning. The 3/4 inch average monthly use of water is 18 units per month throughout the valley here. For Newhall, a customer's bill will drop $11.24 per month. That's the negative sign. It will go down $11.24 per month in the first year of the plan. If you go down to the Santa Clarita division, their bill will go down about 2 cents per month during the first year. And the Valencia customers, their bill will go up $3.99 per month at this level of consumption. So each of these have a different bill impact for the same level of consumption in this first year. And that is because the point of the first year of this plan is to converge rates to a single rate. What you'll see in the next several columns is the annual changes for all customers throughout the service area with the same meter size. It's the same per month. So for example, in the second year of this rate plan, for 3/4 inch meter connection size customers using 18 units of water a month, in Newhall, their bill will go up $3.57. In Santa Clarita, their bill will also go up $3.57. Just like in Valencia, their bill will go up $3.57 per month. So going after that first year, the bill impact for the customers are the same across the entire service area. Over the 5-year plan, the proposed rate plan will have the following impacts. If you go to the far right, where it says 5-year total on this slide, the Newhall division 3/4 inch customers will see a $4.50 per month increase in their bill, cumulative. And the reason it's only $4.50, despite several years of 4 years of increases, is that first year, their bill dropped $11.24 per month. So just adding across, that will equal $4.50 increase over the 5-year period. During that same 5-year period, the Santa Clarita division customers, their bill will have risen $15.73 per month. And the Valencia folks' bill will have increased $19.73 per month under this proposal. So I hope that helps explain the anticipated customer impacts. And with that, I will turn this over to Tara to go through the remainder of this presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric. So let's talk about how we're making sure people know what's happening. So first of all, we sent out the public hearing notice. So we definitely didn't just try to bury a letter. We sent it out flat. Hopefully everybody was made aware of it. We're trying to reach people where they are. And your presence here today, I hope, means that people have been hearing about it. We've also posted it on social media, and we know it's made the paper. So we've really tried to make sure everyone knows what's happening. We also have put together a dedicated web page with additional resources, including the Ratepayer Advocate report, of the cost of service study, and additional tools like a bill estimator and some frequently asked questions. A copy of this presentation and its recording will also be made available on that same webpage so that people who were not able to make it to one of these meetings will be able to watch the presentation. And one of the things I'm really excited about is this bill estimator, because we want to make sure that not only do you have access to what it very well might be for other people, that you can see how it impacts your bill. Frequently asked questions include these at the moment. If we hear any today that we should add, we will absolutely do so, along with some answers. And then we want to make sure that you have access to all of these questions and answers on the website whenever you need to take a look. So going back to the bill estimator, and I'll walk people through this at the very, very end as well, but all you have to do is go to yourscvwater.com/rate planning, and you select your division, you select your meter size, you select the rate's effective date, so that way you can see exactly what it looks like this year, next year, year after, all the way up to the 5 years for the plan. And then you would enter in your monthly consumption, and you can find that on your bill in the right-hand area, and we'll show you that later, exactly where with the circle, which is also on the bill estimator. So if you don't remember, it's right there, and you can see exactly where to find that information. And then you would review the table to the right, so seeing how that impacts your bill. So that's just an example of what it might look like. And one of the things I want to highlight is both on there and in the notice is exactly how to write in your opinion, protest, all of that information. And just as a reminder, how you would do that is by filling out a piece of paper. Any piece of paper will do, and either mailing it in or dropping it off, and including your name, your parcel number, or your address, whatever you have easy access to, and then just a signature saying that you protest. We kept it pretty simple. Finally, I'm going to introduce Ichigo, who is our ratepayer advocate, who's reviewed this cost of service study within an inch of its life. Thank you so much, Ichigo.
Thank you, Tara. I'm Ichiko Kido, the ratepayer advocate. I was there the entire process of the rate making to ensure the proposed rates are the lowest possible rates, while the agency maintains the appropriate level of services for its customers. Please do reach out to me if you have any questions via the agency's website. The information will be shared in the next slide, I believe. I'm also anxious to hear your questions during the Q&A session in a few minutes. Thank you so much for being a part of this meeting today.
Thank you, Ichigo. So we're already in Q&A session, this section, and I already see Stacy has a question for us. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then we'll get into the questions, and then I'll review the website with you guys. So Stacy, go ahead and ask your question.
Sure. So last night I was doing a little bit of research, and I was on the water agency website. And while I navigate the website often, I know where to look for things. But for someone who doesn't, the links to this can be hard to find if you don't have the booklet in front of you. So I am wondering if there's a way that you can put something on the splash page of the agency with a quick link, or something on the splash page that says that there's a rate change or a rate increase, and have it immediately obvious and not so hard to kind of dig and find if you don't know where to look.
That's a great point, Stacy, and I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. I believe that's already there. So if you look at what's in the spotlight, and it says
Sure.
Learn more about proposed rate changes. So like, do you wish that were a button maybe? Would that be easier? Because it's,
yeah, I think
like,
that they need to know that there's a time limit on it, that there's, that it's something that is immediate, it's happening now, maybe, yeah, you need to highlight that, spotlight it a little more, maybe make it a button, maybe say, you know, there's a time deadline on it, that it's important that we hear from you, that kind of thing. And I'm also really disheartened on this call to see that there are only 22 participants and half of them are from the agency itself. That's depressing, but that's another topic altogether. So yeah, if we can highlight that, make it more easily accessible so people aren't having to dig for it. If you don't know what you're looking for, it's really cumbersome to try and find it.
We can absolutely make that a button. Kathy, I know that you have a team that can do so. Is that a huge problem? Just making it a button instead of the board link?
Not at all. We'll look at that today and make that more clear. It can be done by the end of today.
Great. Thank you so much. We have the right people on the call to solve it, though, Stacey.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm grateful.
And I haven't seen any questions in the chat window. Are there, this is the time to raise your hand so that I can call on you to ask any questions that you might have. All right, and for those of anyone, it's kind of a free for all now. Anyone want to unmute at all? Ask any questions? Oh, wait, I've got a hand raised. So 661-29793. Whoever raised their hand, because I'm not going to read the phone number, you're welcome to ask. And I can ask you to unmute. There you go. All you have to do is press *6. All right. I've asked to unmute. You just press *6 and it should unmute you. All right. Anyone else while we're waiting? I can't make them unmute. I cannot unmute them.
Yeah, maybe
There we go. Wait, anything?
No,
Yeah.
If they have a problem and they're having a problem getting unmuted, maybe someone on our team can take down the phone number and we can reach out to them afterwards and address their questions and post it on the webpage.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've pressed the ask to unmute button like 6 times. I wish I could help them unmute. All right. Anyone else? Anything?
Hello?
There we go.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Yay.
Yeah, I'm on the phone. I'm sorry. I must be pushing the wrong buttons. Anyways, understanding legacy debt. What I understand is the 3 divisions accumulated some type of debt before it became one Santa Clarita Valley Water. I'm just wondering, is that debt does that have anything to do with the revenue that was lost during the drought years? Just a question. Just curious in that respect. As a ratepayer, tried our best to save a drop of water during the drought years, but if it is accumulated, the water saved, the revenue that was lost because of saving, that's a shame, because we tried our best to save a drop through those years. Any suggestions, your thoughts?
There was, this is Eric Campbell. There was no debt taken on to cover lost revenues from the drought. The legacy debt is for actual capital projects that were invested in for the specific service area. So that's, hopefully that's very responsive to your question and concern there.
Yeah, it is, amongst others, of course. But that was the main reason, because I know that there was revenue lost during the drought years,
right.
But our rates increased anyways, and I think that's because of that drought and ratepayers trying to save the drop during those years. I understand there's money being spent on infrastructure and improvements, but I'm just curious about the doing our best to try to adhere to restrictions, drought restrictions.
You're absolutely right, sir. It's one of those interesting things that we will send you out a letter congratulating you on conserving and doing your share to conserve, and then we turn around and ask to raise your rates because we have lost the revenue, and that's an oddity of this type of work, and it's a combination of trying to manage the rates for find that balance for managing the rates so they are least impactful for the customer. And what we have is largely a lot of fixed expenses, but yet we derive most of our revenues from the variable charge. So it's one of those tough things that unfortunately they had to do when the state mandated the 20 or 25% reduction for this area during the drought. We're not completely exempt from that by any stretch of the matter today, but that's just kind of the nature of what we have. We're largely fixed cost enterprise, and we do collect most of our revenues on the variable side of things. I don't know if Matt, our general manager, may have a comment that he'd like to add on that one as well.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty good answer, Eric. I would note that we do carry reserve funds, and the new agency has set up reserve funds. In the past, I don't think, for example, Valencia Water, whose rates were set more on a PUC model, didn't have large reserves, which made it harder to cushion the impact of conservation. So generally, I think we can withstand some reduction in sales because we plan for that, for just the variability in demand with weather in wet and dry years. It's when we get into that longer term drought, where, as you point out, there were actually state orders to conserve in I think 2015, late 2015, early 2016, that impacted revenues beyond what our reserves could absorb. So typically in the first year of asking for voluntary conservation efforts, we're not going to be adding on anything to rates. That's kind of built into our reserve structure. Ultimately, they'll have to be replenished over time, but that kind of acts as a shock absorber. But when we get into a multi-year drought, or a drought where there are deeper cuts, either requested by the higher level at the state, then that may impact reserves to a point where we would need to look at that issue. But first, we would go to our reserves.
Yeah, it looks like to me that the conservation is here to stay, and it's coming. And I'm just, like I said, I'm curious on the conservation aspect of things in the future when we're asked to conserve, which is fine. I understand that.
Yeah.
But at the same token, though, the rate increase, the 5-year rate increase that you're proposing to us now, is it going to be compounded with more increase because of our conservation efforts?
Yeah, I think, and Eric can speak to this a little bit, as could our rate advocate. We do build in, there are some state targets for just kind of overall baseline improvement in efficiency that are, we have to adhere to as an agency. So we're kind of given targets to hit for overall per capita use that are slowly ratcheting down. And that's, we do that in our normal conservation programs, or retrofits, home audits, that kind of thing. So as per capita use is decreasing, that does have an impact on sales, but that kind of baseline conservation is ground into our sales projections. So that way we don't overestimate how much water we're going to sell. So the rates you see proposed factor in some baseline conservation occurring over the next 5 years. It would only be some kind of extraordinary conservation beyond that. And again, as I said, I think at least the first portion of that can be absorbed from reserves that we carry. We have a number of categories of reserves, and one is a water rate stabilization reserve that helps with that. If we were in an extreme drought, which we would certainly all be feeling statewide, we could get to a point where we would need to do that, but it wouldn't be because of asking for normal conservation. It would be something, kind of a outlier kind of event.
Okay, thank you much for your time.
All right, we have a question from 661-297-9774.
That would be me. I was having
Oh.
problems with the button.
Okay,
I'm finished.
got it.
Sorry.
All right, so then we've got one from David Bell.
Yes, I just had a question. You made a comment regarding the PFAS treatment, and then down below you're saying you're going to be pursuing legal action against the manufacturers of PFAS chemicals to recover treatment expenses. Is that going to any way alter the increase over the next 5 years? I know it takes time to get these litigations done, but would that alter the increase to us as ratepayers?
This is
Thank
Matt.
you, Matt.
Yeah, General Manager. I'll try to take that question, and thank you, David. I don't think we would expect a recovery in that time period, though there may be. The other area that we're looking for is grant funding, and if we were to realize a significant amount of grant funding, that may help on the capital side, which could, in the out years, take a little pressure off those later increases. It's one of those things that you're trying to make sure you have enough revenue in your rate plan, and then if you can pull in some additional money, that would be helpful in the out years, and we might be able to revisit those increases or look at those for savings in the next rate case.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And just as a reminder, the proposed rates are only the maximum that the district is allowed to raise them in any given year. So they could choose to raise them less if something like a grant or major grant or what you're talking about comes to pass. Right, Matt?
Correct. Just as an example, on perchloric contamination that occurred from the Whitaker Burmite site, I think that from the time we first became aware of perchlorate as a newly regulated contaminant to the time we had any dollars flowing in was probably more than 10 years. So, but I will say today we are getting an annual O&M contribution from the settlement with Whitaker that is therefore not coming from ratepayers for the operation of the Saugus treatment facility that's over there by Lowe's and In-N-Out Burger. There's a wellhead treatment facility there that they paid for, and they're paying for the operation costs.
All right, are there any other questions?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
go for it.
I have. Why don't we use more of the recycled water? It seems like such a waste. When I ride my bike and I see that pipe every day, water running out of it, and then there's another pipe down by Magic Mountain, and it's just running into the wash and basically giving water to the growers downriver. I don't understand why some of that water isn't pushed up into Sand Canyon and let it percolate down into our aquifers instead of wasting it down by Magic Mountain. I know you have to keep the river running, but I think there's like 16 million or billion gallons pumped out of there a day. It seems like a big waste. That's from the sewage plant. That's maybe not your issue, but I've been talking to people for years about that, and everybody says they point at him and somebody else, and we don't have the money, and we can't do that. And so I'm wondering, has any issues been changed or plans?
Yeah, I'll try to answer that. Unfortunately, I would love to address you by name, but it just has a phone number up on the screen. So, Richard, thank you. Appreciate that. This is Matt Stone, the general manager for SCV Water. There is a number of expansions of the system that are on the books that have been designed, and one has been constructed. I think actually a second one is under construction. So there's kind of two aspects of that. One is expanding the recycled water system itself, and there have been plans to do several phases of expansion. Some of those are designed, and some of those are either recently constructed or under construction. The other piece is actually the supply of recycled water to that system, and that you kind of put your finger on it, which is flows in the river. In order to take water out of the river that's been in the river, there's a permitting process that one has to go through that involves consultation with the state, doing environmental documentation, and getting a water rights permit from the state board. And the Fish and Wildlife agencies weigh in that process as well. So that is a process that at some point we will go through. There's currently some litigation also pending between a party and the sanitation district over aspects of that issue. So we have been trying to see the outcome of that process before starting back on trying to permit. In the meantime, we are attempting to also make available new flows that haven't hit the river yet as new development comes online. And we have a program and a protocol for that is going to provide some water for these expanded systems as they're being built. So I think ultimately we will get there, but it may take some time. And as for the million gallon, several, I think it's 14 or 15 million gallons a day now, because conservation has actually had an effect on wastewater discharge too.
Yes.
That amount in the river, there, we will have to go through that process to determine how much, if any, can come out of the river and under what kind of parameters. But that is definitely on our radar to pursue, and we'll just have to, I always say it's California, so we want to balance all interests when we go through these processes. It's kind of our state, should be our unofficial state motto, I think. And those things take a lot of time and effort, unfortunately. But hopefully the outcome will give us recycled water as well as a sustainable river as well, and the ecosystem aspects of that.
Okay. I just have a second question, if that's okay.
Definitely, this is the time.
In the last drought, that we were told that we need to cut back 20% and do that. And how many people were actually fined? Is there any kind of statistics that actually tells us how many people were actually fined, or, for not meeting the 20% or overwatering or whatever? is there any kind of numbers that are available that would tell us that maybe nobody got fined or nobody went to jail, or any kind of reaction by the water company?
Sure. One thing to recall is when we were in that drought, there were still 3 separate water retailers in the valley with two different governing boards, and the other was still a private water company. We were all subject to the state order, which came, from the governor and the State Water Resources Control Board. So the interesting thing is, I think it was prudent, definitely, to conserve given the situation that the entire state was in. In that year, we probably had enough water not to have to incur a 25% ordered cutback, but we did make efforts to comply. Our customers did actually very well in aggregate, but I think anyone's familiar with the old bell curve. We had some A students and some F students, and a lot of B and C students. But overall, we got across the line. As far as fines, I don't know that any agency used fines per se. I do know they used letters, and they used outreach from conservation staff to go out and see if they could help them identify, perhaps overrunning sprinklers, timer issues. We did definitely get reports and complaints, and we followed up on those complaints. I don't really have statistics. At that time, the agency I was with would have had Santa Clarita Division as one of our components, but we weren't managing Valencia, and we weren't managing Newhall County. So I apologize for not being able to give you off the cuff statistics, but just process wise, we were probably less policing and more trying to bring awareness or notify customers that they were excessively using water, particularly when there was visible runoff coming off the property.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions? Anything? Everyone's available to unmute. We're here to answer all your questions. All right, I don't see any, so I'm going to go ahead and just very quickly before we end, show everyone here the website who can see it, and specifically walk them to the rate planning area. So again, right up on the right, learn more about proposed rate changes, which takes you to that same website that's in the 218 public hearing notice. Shows the rate changes, the ratepayer advocate report. If you have additional questions for the ratepayer advocate, you can submit them there on this beautiful form. And then if you want to check out how the bill estimator works and see what your bill might look like, it takes a second to load because it's really great. And also I'm not on the same internet as I was yesterday. So this is going to take it we'll just go back into here for a second. Here are the public meetings. Here's where we'll post the video of this particular meeting. And here's where we have the public hearing information. And here are those FAQs we were talking about earlier. So here's the bill estimator loaded. Isn't that great? All right, you just put in your division, your meter size. This is that piece that I was talking about where you could see where on your bill. So meter size, and this is where you get your usage as well. And here up here, you can see where your division is in case you don't know which division you're in. Then you select your effective date. So I'm going to choose a different one. And then I'm going to say I use a really average number of water. and you can see how your rate will change. And with that, I thank everyone for coming, and I'll see you at the hearing maybe, or maybe not. We'll see what happens next. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your questions today, everyone. Appreciate it.